Good evening. I'm Devesh Lati from the Next Genius Foundation, and this is a 2-hour micro certification session in which you will listen to some very fantastic speakers as they talk with you about how to guide students for profile building. The first session is the one where you listen to three panelists and friends as they talk about profile building, as they talk about holistic admissions, and how can you help build a profile building calendar for your students. That's number one. Following that, we have a session on advanced placements, on how advanced placements or APs are an important part of creating or building your profile. That will happen from 5:30 to 6. Following that, we have John Nesbitt from Duolingo English Test, as he'll talk about the importance of English proficiency testing in admissions. And at the end of it, from 6:30 p.m. to 7 p.m., we'll have all of these panelists join again for Q&A. So the Q&A is at the very end of this whole event, and it's not at the end of every segment. That's a little bit about this session and this event. This is a micro certification event. So at the end of it, when you complete or when you participate in the whole session, we make a note of that, and we will send you your certificates for the session. Before moving forward, let me introduce our three panelists for this event. Let me start with Dhruva. Dhruva is a friend and is the director of Lumiere Education, which runs a fantastic research program. So a lot of you might have students looking for interesting profile building activities, and Dhruva runs an amazing research program. So a lot of our students have participated in their research programs in the past. Dhruva is a current DPhil candidate and a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford. Before going to Oxford, he has studied at Harvard, where he concentrated in economics. He founded Lumiere Research Scholar Program with his friend Stephen, also from Oxford, and he works on Lumiere to make these world-class research opportunities available to students. Thank you, Dhruva, for joining us today. Also joining us as a panelist, we have Kristin Crosby. Kristin is the Director of International Admissions at Ohio Wesleyan University, Ohio. And it's also popularly known as OWU. OWU is a Next Genius partner, which means your students have an opportunity of winning full tuition scholarships at OWU if they apply to the Next Genius Scholarship Program. She has massive experience. She has over 2 decades of experience in the International Admissions Office. She's passionate about helping students get into liberal arts colleges and sciences and finding the right fit students for OWU. She loves guiding students through the college search process and provides advice. Her favorite pastimes includes cooking, baking, reading, cycling, hiking, and traveling. And she has visited over 60 countries and nearly a dozen cities in India. So she has been traveling to India, and she understands the Indian high school landscape pretty well. And I'm sure she'll be able to provide us lots of interesting advice as all of you guide the students. And finally, our panelist, Vandana Murjani. Vandana Murjani is the head of counseling at the Emerald Heights International School, Indore, and Emerald Heights has the highest number of Next Genius scholars. Every year we see at least 2-3 scholars winning a Next Genius scholarship. So if you are new to Next Genius scholarship, I encourage you to connect with Vandana and learn more about how the program works. She counsels students from grade 8 all the way till grade 12 and scientifically help them discover their potential. She shoulders multiple responsibilities like being an AP coordinator, SAT and ACT supervisor, English language content head, and a student empowerment mentor. She has been the recipient of the Counselor Recognition Program 2019 by the College Board, the Excellence in Teaching Award by Career Launcher, and has been nominated by the Best Emerging Counselor Award for 2 consecutive years at IC3. Very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you all for joining, and let's get straight into the questions now. We have 22 minutes left. I've taken up 6-7 minutes. It's pretty long than I should have or I could have. Dhruva, let's start with you. As you have seen the process from being a student getting accepted into highly selective programs, and now you're yourself running multiple programs which are selective in nature. What is the importance of now? Why is profile building important for highly selective admissions? And while you're answering that, also tell us a little bit about what a holistic or a well-rounded profile would look like.
Yeah, of course, it's such a pleasure to be here. So I'm going to approach this question a bit differently. I think profile building is person building. Profile building is developing your interests in who you are as a person, figuring out what matters to you, what you're good at, what you care about, and through all of those things, building up a set of activities that demonstrate those values and characteristics to the outside world. So that's what profile building is. Looking back at my journey through middle school and high school, in middle school, I was doing all sorts of things. I was doing a little bit of creative writing. I was doing public speaking competitions. I was doing theater. I unfortunately did no sport or music, but I wish I'd done some of it as well, because I think early on in sort of middle school and early high school is really a time of exploration to try and figure out which of these many things that are out there are right for you. Close to the end of middle school and early high school, I started to figure out that there were two things that really stood out to me in the things that I was doing. I loved debate and I loved learning sort of a foreign language, which was German. And I started going all in on that. That was not a conscious decision. It's more, I love those two things so much that they ended up taking up all of my time in high school. And so I proceeded through debate and represented India at the World Championships. I continued learning German up to the B2 level and went to the German Olympiad. And both of those things, I think, ended up playing a big part in my profile, not because I had planned to do it in advance and sort of planned out my high school career that way, but because through the process of exploration and then digging deeper, I found the things that I was excited by and interested in and decided to move forward. So that's how I would say a strong profile is built, by giving students the space to figure out what matters to them and what they enjoy, and then encouraging them and pushing them to work hard and keep going at those things, so that they're able to discover what it means to be truly excellent at something and the joy that comes with that.
Superb. Thank you, Dhruva, for answering that. Let me move on to Kristin. Kristin, you have lots of experience. You have a lot of experience identifying good fit students at highly selective universities. So my question to you is, as an admission officer from a selective college in the US, what are certain factors or things that you look for in a student's profile?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to echo some of what Dhruva just said. There were some words that stood out, and I think he really captured the essence. He mentioned values, he mentioned exploration, and he used the word love quite a lot. So when I'm looking at a student's CV or their list of activities on the Common Application or any other application, first, I'm looking to get a sense of how the student spent their free time. That could be after school, it could be on the weekends, and it could be on breaks. And I'm trying to look for kind of clues to see, again, what Dhruva mentioned. Are there certain values that this student has? Are they passionate about the environment? Or are they passionate about politics? So I'm trying to get a sense of the student through just generally how they've spent their free time. Then I also am trying to see if there are passions that are evident. Some students are dabblers and they like to be involved in lots of things. You know, we call them the well-rounded student, and certainly those students can be very appealing. But then there are some students who just truly have zeroed in on one or two passions, and they spend all of their time devoted to those passions, and they're equally attractive students as well. So I'm trying to get a sense of those passions, their hobbies, if they have a special talent. And I'm imagining how the student might be involved on my campus. So sometimes I might actually reach out to a professor or a student from that club, or somebody else on campus, and say, hey, I'm reading this great application. This student is super talented in debate, would you mind reaching out to them? So I'm trying to make those connections from the very start during the reading process. And then I'm looking for some things that might distinguish the student on another level. Maybe they've organized things, maybe they've achieved leadership. Have they been recognized by their school or community for these special talents or passions? And that is where they start to set themselves above some of the other students. And the other thing I want to mention, because it's profile building isn't just about talents and hobbies and passions, but it's who the student is in essence. And there are some students who have heavy obligations. Maybe obligations isn't the right word, but it could be that they have responsibilities looking after younger siblings because perhaps a parent works in another country or both parents work. Perhaps the student is heavily devoted to their religious practices. And so certain days of the week, they are involved in religious organizations. Perhaps they're involved in something in the community. So they might have these obligations that don't necessarily fit into those clear-cut sports and music and activities and passions and hobbies, but they are still something that truly make the student who they are. And the last thing that I would mention in terms of profile building is, who the student is in essence. If there's something that is so true to the student, without it, they wouldn't be the same person today. So in building that profile, trying to think of the very essence of what drives the student.
Superb. Thanks for sharing that, Kristin. And let's shift gears and let's move to Vandana Murjani, who is the counselor at Emerald Heights International School. Please share your insights. How do you recommend the counselors in the audience should guide their students on profile building? Like, should they create a profile building calendar, or share the resources with the students, or share all the opportunities that come to you, or should they share some specific opportunities? Maybe you filter down the opportunities. So how does it work for you when it comes to profile building opportunities for the students?
Thank you, Devesh. That's a wonderful question. Before I come to my opinion and how I do it, I think I would like to highlight and underline two things from what Dhruva said. Dhruva said that he kept digging deeper to find and explore himself. And then he came to the conclusion that he was good at debating, and then also that he was good at writing and all. Then I would also like to underline two things from what Kristin has said. And I really chime with Kristin here. Kristin has said, I'm trying to get a sense of who this individual is. So, and where is he heavily involved? So the word heavily is not to be taken lightly, basically. That's what I have understood in this small conversation. And she's also said that she's trying to find out what the passion of the student is. Now, these things, when we say lightly, basically involve strenuous work with the students. Day in and day out, I've seen students dropping in my cabin and asking a number of questions like, ma'am, what should I do? I'm stressed. My seniors have done this. My friends are doing this. Who am I? I have not done community service project. Ma'am, I'm yet to do those sports projects. There are so many questions in their minds. And as a result, they start thinking of hundreds of options to enhance their college profiles. And they end up doing thousands of things which are not even meaningful to them. They put in so much of energy to do as much and whatever comes their way. But in my experience, I've seen such students, quite many of these students, feeling stressed, frustrated, and even losing their self-identity at times. So which feels very painful as a counselor. And this is where our role comes in. So a well guidance, appropriate and timely, I think we can control these frustrations to great extents. And I particularly, and I'm sure many of our friends in the audience would echo with me, that they run the career curriculum, which is divided grade-wise. And this plays a vital role. This journey actually starts with the students when they are in 8th and 9th, basically, and which is still a tender age. And students have loads of confusions. So in 8th and 9th grades, particularly, we should emphasize on active participations in school activities. There are so many activities that the schools run, like student clubs, maybe debates, maybe MUNs, arts, music, sport, STEM related, and so many other things, technology, robotics, many more. So I feel that these experiences and the outcomes from these or the achievements from these indicate a lot about what's working well with the students and what isn't. And here we also need to take care that we speak about balancing academics simultaneously, because ultimately the game is not to lose on the academics. So in grades 8 and 9, they get a sense of what kind of activities they are enjoying a lot. What are those things where they find joy in and they're growing in? It gives them a little inkling about, are they kind of good writers, or are they tech people, or are they environmentalists or physicists? A little idea here, if taken forward to class 10th, I think this class 10th, I being from CBSE, I would say this is very crucial, because after this year, they need to select streams subject-wise. So they need to deep dive into subjects to prepare for the stream selection. So we emphasize more on engagements in subject-related activities more, maybe subject Olympiads of their choices, of their interests, research programs, absolutely, summer programs, absolutely, courses that they enjoy but outside the curriculum, APs, some student-run clubs, leadership roles, like maybe if they are into physics, they can take over some kind of roles with physics lab and all. So here they get a clear understanding by the end of this class 10th whether they are meant for which domain. And when we get into 11th and 12th, an advanced step takes place here. This is the most crucial time. Skill development, knowledge enhancement, and not only school but even outside. So heavy involvement in research, specific internships, writings, publications, leadership roles in subject domains. Maybe if they are very much into biology, can they take charge of biology lab or take charge of doing some work under biology professor or teacher? If they are into avid reading, writing, can they take charge of bringing some innovation in school library and many other things? So initiating these unique things into our curriculum will actually bring that heavy involvement over years. I think this is what Kristin wants to say, that she is looking for heavy involvement and consistency, which is built over here, not done, not done just forcibly to show it on the profile. So this is how, if we put layers into the learning of the students, we come to know that the students have developed themselves in a very, very meaningful way, which automatically comes into their profile. And admission readers like Kristin will be able to identify who this particular beautiful individual is.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Vandana, for sharing that. And we are now moving towards the next question. But before moving there, I have a couple of quick poll questions to understand the audience better. Maybe Kajal, maybe you can just run the poll questions about the city first. So we'll just want to know which cities are you joining us from? Okay. And the second one is which curriculum does your school run? So if there are multiple curriculums, you can select two options, but just tell us which curriculum are there at your school. So you'll see a poll question in front of you. Just answer that, please. All right. So thank you for answering those questions. It will help us plan our future sessions better. And with that, let me just come back to you, to all the presenters, and let me ask all of you one mistake that you see students making while they are working on their profiles or while they're thinking about profile building, right? So let's start with Vandana first. Over to you. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you for asking. So according to me, the commonest misconception that which the students believe is more is better. They follow everyone's advice just to accumulate as many activities as they could without losing their own self. So instead, students could spend some time thinking about how they can integrate their regular work and interest. Can they think about character building instead of personality build and personality building instead of just filling out those columns for profile or common app? So I think more is better only if it excites you and you are growing with that in your own area. That's one mistake. I feel students should keep a check.
Superb. So it's not like more is always better. Sometimes less is more, right? So thanks for sharing that. Over to you, Kristin. Now, what are some mistakes that you see students who apply to you? They make this mistake. Yes.
Sure. And just to echo what Vandana just said, students don't need to use all 10 spaces on the common application. I think they see the number of spaces there and they feel like they have to fill out every single one, and that's just not true. I would say that the biggest misconception or misunderstanding about profile building is that I sometimes get a sense that a student is trying to craft a persona. They're trying to say, all right, I want to come across as this kind of person. And so then they build their profile in such a way as they're not really showing who they are genuinely. We really want to know who the genuine, authentic student is, and they should be using language that would be typical of language they would use. Sometimes when they're filling out descriptions of their activities or roles, they're using language which just almost sounds like their little, business people crafting an adult business CV. It's a high school student. So we want the student to use language that a 16, 17, or 18-year-old student would use to describe those activities. So we really want to get a sense of the genuine, authentic, true student and not somebody that they think we want to find in the pool of applicants.
Superb. Thank you for sharing that thought, Kristin. And before we move to Dhruva, I would also recommend both of you, Kristin and Vandana, to be ready with a 30-second final advice. We are coming towards the end of the session, but a very quick advice to all the attendees here. Over to you, Dhruva. The mistake that you see students making.
Of course, I think one of the common mistakes I see is students looking at others, especially in years above them, and feeling like, wow, this person has done so much and I've done nothing. And I think the two important things to make clear are, first, often when it seems like someone has done a lot of things, they didn't do all of those things at the same time. They usually did those serially. So maybe they did one thing the summer between the 9th and 10th grade, and the other thing the summer between the 10th and 11th grades. And when you lay it out like that, it feels a lot more reasonable. And the second is that each of the activities you've done has many different dimensions. And what matters is not just that you've done it, but that you've communicated it effectively on the final application. So if you take a research project, for example, you could communicate it as evidence of your academic ability. You could choose to highlight the process of applying to it and getting through a feeling of imposter syndrome and struggling to put the application together and what that says about you. You could talk about what you did with the project afterwards and what you went on to build using that. So that was just an example of a research activity because that's what I'm most familiar with, but that's true of anything, a volunteering activity, a sport. There's so many different dimensions to that, and it has challenged who you are and shaped who you are in many different ways. And thinking about it holistically is, I think, a good way of fleshing that out on that application to demonstrate that you are someone with a strong profile and personality.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dhruva, for sharing that. And we are almost coming towards the end of the session. But before closing, I just want to listen a very brief 30-second advice that you would like to share with the counselors who are present in the audience. So any one of you who wants to go first?
Let me go first, no problem.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I would just give one example. I would say lead by example, because we are leading the students who are going to follow us. So if we lead by examples, we will be able to, understand that the kids are very observant and they're going to catch what we do. So let us demonstrate those values and ethics, what we expect from our students.
Fantastic. That's great. Kristin, over to you.
I would say to help the students not worry so much. And as Dhruva said, don't compare themselves so much. So don't worry about not continuing an activity for 4 years. Don't worry about not being able to tick all the boxes if a student has not done a sport or has not done music. You don't have to be a jack of all trades, having done everything. Don't worry if, the pandemic has kept you from being able to do as much as you'd hoped to do. I would say just be proud of what you've accomplished.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kristin. And over to you, Dhruva, now.
Of course. I want to start by saying thank you. The concept of a guidance counselor didn't really exist in schools. At least we didn't have one in my school, and I had to navigate school and the application process entirely by myself. And I think the fact that you're all here and paying active attention to this is such a credit to all of you, and your students are incredibly lucky to have all of you. And I think I would just underscore what I said at the beginning, and I think has been a consistent theme through all of this, which is your goal and the students' goal should be to help them become a more interesting, more socially interested, and talented person who's aware of who they are and their place in the world. That's what I think profile building is all about, and that's what I think universities are looking for as well. And if they're able to answer those questions through the activities that they have done, I'm sure they're going to do very well in the college application process. So thank you guys, and it's been such a pleasure to be part of this conversation.
Superb. So thank you, Dhruva. Thank you, Kristin. Thank you, Vandana, for being here and for sharing your thoughts and insights with the audience.